earlier in the in the last yesterday's class, how a jiva, the soul, dies at the time of death, how it takes the how it goes with the karma. So now the karma is the cause of transmigration or rebirth. To get over karma, you need to get over desire. How do you get this desire? You have to become akama. That means you have to understand your self nature. That you can understand through atmadnana. Ignorance has to go. This is the teaching. Right? Itino kamaya mano ata kamaya manaha yo akamo nishkama aptakama atmakamo natasya prana utkramanti brahmaiva san brahmaiva apyeti. We have given a very detailed description of a person who is dying. Now here what happens to death of a Jnani is described. One who is akama, one who has become free from kama, the desire, and one who has become nishkama, desireless, and one who has become apta kama, that means who has become fulfilled, who is fulfilled himself in the form of self-realization. His pranas will not go anywhere. While he is alive, he has realized himself as Brahman, as the supreme reality, the self. And because he has realized himself as the self, he merges with the self. His pranas will not, his pranas or vital energy will not take him to another body. Whereas for...
What is merging?
Huh?
What will merge?
No, pranas will not. Pranas will not. He has merged with Brahman. The consciousness has merged with the Chidabhasa has merged with the Brahman. Right? So he has no travel. This journey is over. Okay? Pranas don't travel anywhere taking to another body. Right? So this is the teaching. Whereas in case of Adnani, person who is ignorant, the jiva, individual soul, along with all the karmic impressions will travel to another body. For him, for Adnani, the travel has ended. He has realized his self and Atma has merged with the Paramatma. The Jivatma has merged with the Paramatma. The Chidabhasa's consciousness has merged with the Supreme Self, Brahman. For him, there is no more journey.
So what happens to the prana in the body?
The prana just dissolves in the body. It doesn't trap, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't take him anywhere. Okay? You can think in another way. A person is hungry. For him, if you serve a food, he will eat. Okay? For a person who is fulfilled, whose stomach is full, even if you give more sweet, more laddu, more dishes, he can't even eat anything more because he is already fulfilled. Because he is fulfilled, he cannot eat anything more. A person who is not realized the self is like hungry person. Hungry. He has desire. For fulfilling the desire, he has to search for another body, hunt for a new body. The desires are not fulfilled. That have left impressions, and that impressions he has to fulfill. He is like a hungry man. He has to keep searching for bodies to experience life and fulfill the desires. Whereas a person who is self-realized is become apta kama. Apta kama means is all desires fulfilled. Okay. How all the desires are fulfilled? Every desire, as I told you, is seeking happiness from some objects in the world. Right? Every desire in the world is to get some happiness from the objects of the world. And the objects of the world are always changing. Okay? Yeah, I'm happy if I get a mobile phone this year. In 6 months I am unhappy because the new mobile phone comes, the new brand, with a lesser price. So I have to earn money again. So you are constantly moving targets are there in the world. Your happiness is constantly eluding. Okay? And why do you get happiness when you get something in the object, from the object? The moment you get an object, the mind of the person becomes silent for momentarily. Before getting the object, there is a desires keep rising, thoughts keep rising, and that disturbs the mind, and that disturbance is called unhappiness. When you get the object, maybe it's mobile phone or maybe it's a sweet, the moment you get it, the mind is temporarily silent. In the temporary silence of the mind, this bliss of the self is reflected. And that's what you call as happiness. You have a sense of losing your boundaries. And then you say, I am happy, then again the mind comes up, then it starts looking for objects of happiness. Because when the happiness really comes, there's no mind. Mind has become no mind, mind has become silent. Okay?
You mean to say when there is no mind, no thoughts?
When there is no mind, there's no thoughts, and there's happiness. And mind calls that happiness because mind doesn't know I have gone through a no mind state. It associates the object with the happiness. I became happy because I ate this sweet. I became happy because I got this object. It doesn't know that because you got the object, you went in no mind state, and no mind state happiness is there, which is your own nature, not from the object. Okay, but now you don't mind cannot understand that, because in the no mind state there's no mind. Okay, that no mind state is called happiness, and mind will start seeking happiness again in the external objects. So you are addicted to the external objects. You are addicted to kama, and kama is addiction to karma. Addiction leads to addiction to karma actions, and karma phala. This cycle will continue.
The mind registered and labeled it as this is where I got.
Yeah. So the mind.
Wrongly registered.
The mind says, I got happiness because of a new mobile phone.
This label.
It is wrongly labeling happiness is related to mobile phone. Actually, happiness is not related to mobile phone. Happiness is from the self. Okay? And happiness from the self manifested in the mind because mind became silent.
Misunderstanding.
So, complete wrong understanding of the mind leads to addiction to the desire, kama, and addiction to desire to kama leads to addiction to work, karma. This is a cycle. Okay. And also you don't know that the happiness which you got because of a mobile phone or the biggest sweet or marrying the most beautiful girl or marrying the most handsome boy, all are nothing but a drop in the ocean of the bliss of the self. Not even a drop.
Why do you always compare that you don't?
If you are addicted to the drop of bliss and you think that it's because of something else, and what kind of illusion are you in? Yes, just imagine. When you are sitting on an ocean of bliss which is yourself, you are going after a drop of happiness which you get from somewhere, something, some object, and which the object doesn't give. Again you have to go back to yourself to get the happiness, and one drop. But before that you have to work so much for that. You are wasting your whole life.
Obviously, when you don't get the most handsome boy, you have to adjust with the one you got. What to do with one drop of ocean we are adjusting.
Even if you get the most handsome boy, it will be not even a drop of, one drop in the ocean of bliss. We are wasting our not only lifetimes in this search for happiness. Okay. One who realizes this will start looking for happiness in the self, through Atma Jnana. There are many people who start doing spiritual practices, this practice or that practice, and they start feeling happy. Okay? They don't understand that practice doesn't give happiness. Practice makes the mind silent, and in the silence, the bliss of the self is experienced. Again, they get addicted to the practices rather than discovering the self. The self can be only realized through Jnana, Atma Jnana, self-enquiry. In that self-enquiry, Atma Vichara, you have to be able to separate out Atma and Anatma, self and not self. Separate out self and not self. Okay, we are identifying with the body-mind complex as the self. Separate out that. Okay, Atma, Anatma, subject-object misconception is there. And we think the objects are real. Objects are not real. Objects are appearance in consciousness. Satya Mithya Jnana. And with that, he gets established in the self. Okay. Self being infinite bliss. Okay. Bliss of getting every single thing in the world is already attained. He has aptakama. He has nothing to get. Because everything, even if you get anything in the world, it's just one drop. Now you have merged with the ocean. So that's why he's called aptakama. He becomes free from the desire. He becomes akama. So then there is a wrong understanding that for getting this self, okay, you have to drop the desires. The desire cannot be dropped just like that. Okay. The mind is like a leech. Mind is like a leech. Have you heard of leech? Yeah. Leech will hold on to one place, suck blood, and it will move to another place once it can suck blood from somewhere else. Its movement is from one point to other point. Mind is like a leech. It will hold on to something which gives you happiness. The happiness is not temporary. It will try to suck as much happiness as possible.
Happiness is temporary.
Yeah, happiness is temporary, and happiness doesn't belong to object. Okay, but you still struggle for that happiness. Make body do a lot of work to get that object. Try to squeeze as much as happiness possible, and still remain unsatisfied. And finally, when you understand the real happiness is not in that, the mind, you don't have to drop the desire. Okay, you have to understand the futility of desire. Okay, this requires wisdom. People think that before for going to Atma Dana, I have to drop my attachments. You don't have to drop your attachment. You have to understand the futility of attachments. You have to understand the futility of desires. You don't have to drop desires. Right? There's a difference between dropping desires, understanding futility of that. Then once you understand, the self is the nature of bliss. Self is nature of the infinite happiness. And you start inquiring into the nature of self and start moving towards the self. The mind starts more and more, mind gets engaged in the self-inquiry, Atma Jnana, Atma Vichara. Okay. Then one by one the desires, the kama gets dropped by itself. You become free from kama, nishkama. When you are mind, the nature of mind is mind your nature you have to understand. Mind is designed for focusing on happiness. Wherever the happiness is, it will start moving towards that. So it understands first that happiness is not in the objects of the world at all. Right? If happiness is there in the objects of the world, the same object should give happiness to everybody. No, it doesn't. Okay. A very good new brand car should give happiness to somebody. The same new brand car gives unhappiness to somebody because he wants a bigger brand. Right? Sugar gives happiness to somebody and sugar gives pain to somebody who has diabetes. So happiness is not in the objects, happiness is the subject. So once the mind gets a clarity that happiness is not in the objects, happiness is in me, and mind starts going towards Atma Jnana, one by one the desires will get dropped. It's a natural process. So that's the meaning of sannyasa. Sannyasa means not dropping the world. Sannyasa means samyak nyasa. The mind has to be put deposited properly. If the mind is deposited properly in Atma Dhyana, Atma Vichara, naturally everything else gets dropped. Because mind's attention, as we know, can only focus on one thing at one thing at a time. If it's focusing on real happiness, why it should worry about smaller happinesses? So, focus on the Atma Vichara, Atma Dhyana, naturally everything else starts getting dropped. He becomes Nishkam and he becomes Akama. And he becomes Aptakama once he realizes the self. Aptakama means nothing else to be realized. He has all his desires are fulfilled. It's like somebody's stomach is full and he can't even eat one small extra dish. Like that he becomes Aptakama. That means all his desires are fulfilled. He, instead of taking one drop of from the ocean of bliss, he has dipped himself in the bliss. Okay?
Like Ganesha.
So such a person who has become Aptakama, who has realized the self as I am Brahman, I am the Brahma, I am Brahman. His pranas will not go anywhere. Pranas are there as a vehicle. Jiva uses the prana to go to some other place, to use some other body. What is the use of that prana now? He doesn't go anywhere. Wherever he is, when he dies, his Jiva, individual consciousness, merges with Brahman. His pranas don't travel to another place. The mind has become no mind. That's why there is a difference in the way the cremation is done for a Adnani and Jnani. Adnani's body is actually considered as impure. And when the Jiva, the soul, leaves the body, immediately the body is cremated, burnt. Whereas a Jnani or monk's body, sannyasi's body, is considered as sacred because in that body he has realized the self. And self being all pervading, the body also has become holy. That's why a samadhi is constructed and people offer respects in that samadhi place.